It's time for Pure Performance.
Get your stopwatches ready. It's time for Pure Performance with Andy Grabner and Brian Wilson. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Pure Performance. My name is Brian Wilson, and just to prove this isn't a recorded intro because I say the same thing every time, I'm doing it this way. So, hi, and here's my co-host, Andy Grabner. Andy, it's been a long time since we chatted. How have you been since yesterday?
Since yesterday evening? Not too bad, actually. Yeah. Still here. It's still late in the evening. It's still dark outside. I think yesterday, what I didn't tell people that before the podcast recording, Gabi and I actually went out to the city and we got some glühwein, which probably explains why I came up with some strange words yesterday, like talking partner instead of guest. So maybe I was.
What is glühwein?
Glühwein.
It's sniffing glue?
No, it's like mulled wine. It's mulled wine.
Okay. Never heard. I'd never heard that before. Next time we have a perform, you might have to. Well, I don't know if they'll have mulled wine during perform next year, but I was going to say, maybe you bring some over.
You should, yeah. Maybe it's also very special right now because we're on lockdown. Yeah. And so all the Christmas markets won't happen. And so we were like walking through the streets of Linz yesterday, and then we found this little, like a food truck, and they're opened and they sold punch and mulled wine. And so we decided to have a mulled wine and then walked back home. And then I did the podcast under the influence a little bit. Hopefully I still didn't mess it up too much. But
our speaking, we do have a speaking partner on today, right?
We do have a speaking partner, yeah.
I think, by the way, I think alcohol always improves the podcast. My only issue is that it's too early in the morning for mine. But yes, we have a speaking partner today. Why don't we go ahead and want to introduce our speaking partner and our topic?
Yeah. So our speaking partner, or I may call it guest today, is Andrea Holl. Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, very good. Still sober.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Hey, Andrea, could you do us the favor and quickly introduce yourself? What you do right now? I know you. Well, people will have read this in the title and abstract that you are working at Dynatrace. But give us a little bit more background on what you do there, and then also maybe what you did before Dynatrace too. Just some background on you.
Sure. So my name is Andrea, and I've been working at Dynatrace since March this year, so I'm quite new. I'm an Agile Coach here, and I've been working with several Agile development teams at the same time. My passion is to support teams and also team members to improve their situation, actually, and also the way of Agile development. And in addition, as an Agile Coach at Dynatrace, we also help to improve on an organizational level. Yeah, right. What did I do before? I started about, I guess it's nearly 10 years ago, as a software developer. And after a few years, I decided to become a product owner. And now here at Dynatrace, I'm an Agile Coach. And I'm very happy about that.
Very cool. Hey, so when you talk, you brought up in some interesting terms. You talked about transformation. You talked about helping people to get better, becoming more agile, obviously, but you're an agile coach. But you also talked about organizational changes. I think we as an industry, it seems everybody's trying to transform, whether they call it digital transformation, where they a lot talk about like updating and modernizing their technology and how they deliver and deploy digital services to the customers. But I think in most of the cases, when we look behind the scenes, we always talk about this 80-20 rule, meaning it's only a 20% technology change, but it's actually an 80% culture or people or organizational change. Can you relate to that? Does this make sense when we talk about change, that the biggest part and the hardest part is actually organization and people and processes?
Yes, that totally makes sense because every time if you want to change something, it's all about people. So you need to be aware that everyone is just working at his daily businesses, it's always something new, and you need to communicate that, and you need to train people to do something new. So it's not so easy to get new changes or improvements in the organization because of cultural things and things like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the big $1 million question for you. Well, everybody tries to transform, and they need to transform, yet it seems there is no blueprint to just say, we do these 10 steps and then we have transformed. And I guess the reason for that is because not everybody is the same, not every person is the same, not every organization is the same, not every business is the same. Yet, I know in our conversations, I think it was with Adam Auerbach, a couple of months ago, we talked about agile frameworks. I think the term SAFe came up, the scaled agile framework.
Yeah.
Right? Remember that?
Yep.
So, Andrea, could you kind of to start this conversation, because I know what you're trying to do at Dynatrace, right? You're trying to kind of transform the organization so that it makes sense for Dynatrace, because Dynatrace is unique in a way that every organization is unique, and therefore we need maybe you start from some best practices blueprints, but then you have to find out the right way for that organization. Can you give us a little overview first, though, of about like some agile basic concepts? I think scaled agile is a term that you brought up when you introduced the topic to us. Can you give us just a little background of what people need to know and what this actually all means?
Sure. So, first of all, when we talk about scaled agile models, I think we should go a few steps back and talk about the whole idea about agile software development, because I think this is very necessary to know if you think about the scaled agile concept. So, the thing behind agile software development is that it focuses on just close connections and ongoing communications between all involved people, also including the customer, because the most important thing is to provide value for our customers in the end. And therefore, we need to welcome change, not strictly following a plan all the time. And also to invite stakeholders to give regular feedbacks on the current state of the development. And all the simple frameworks you mentioned, like Scrum and Kanban, do have this base in mind. And but they all have one in common. The recommended team size for these simple agile frameworks is up to 9 people. So, and it's even more complex to develop one product with several teams at the same time. You have then to solve cross-team dependencies. You have to ensure a good communication flow across all teams, and you have to make sure that everyone is aware of the big picture and the vision. And this is not easy if you work with a team up to 800 or 1,000 developers. So you need to ensure or require the required alignment by also keeping flexibility in the teams. And that's a big thing. During agile development, by constantly keeping the agile values in mind, of course. So, and that's when you need to think about scaled agile models.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I mean, I guess I've never thought about this, that obviously I'm aware and familiar with Scrum and Kanban, but that these models have really been designed initially for very small agile teams. And the size of 9 is interesting. Now, with scaled agile, can you give us some additional ideas? What are some popular frameworks? What are some approaches on how to scale these agile concepts from small individual teams to larger teams?
Yes, of course. So there have been developed many scaled agile frameworks since now. So the most popular, SAFe, which is short for Scaled Agile Framework. Also LESS, which is short for Large Scale Scrum, or the Spotify model, which is named after the company Spotify. So, I can dive into some of these if you want to. So
it would be great. At least, I think just as me and probably Brian, a lot of our listeners are, I'm sure, familiar with the term agile and what agile development in general means. But when we start hearing SAFe, less, Spotify model, I think some basic understanding would be interesting what these models include. Because obviously where we want to get to later on in the conversation is, why can't just every organization simply pick one of those and apply them one-to-one and then be done with it? Why do we still need to change and adapt to our individual needs, and how did we do it at Dynatrace? So that's why a little overview, a little background on some of these scaled agile frameworks would be really great.
Yeah, sure. They all have one in common, basically. So they all want to connect people who work on one product. For example, SAFe is a huge knowledge base about methods, practices, and things like that. It's so detailed that it's even too complex for many companies or many people to use it. So, but the good thing is that you can find everything in detail which you need basically to introduce this framework. The thing is, and they recommend it by themselves as well, that you should think about hiring one of these SAFe consultants to do the whole transformation process, because it's so complex. And but the good thing is that you can use it for up to 1,000 developers, or even more. But you could also use it for fewer teams. So just thinking about 4 or 5 teams. So it offers you structures, workflows, and things like that you can overcome these cross-team dependencies, that you have a good planning situation and a good working deployment workflow. Yeah. And what is nice at SAFe as well is that it provides autonomy for the teams, so they can use their own workflows, which is quite similar to Dynatrace, basically. And that's what I really like about SAFe. Yeah. Less compared to SAFe is a way more simpler approach for a scaled agile framework. So it's based on Scrum. So all the teams have to work with Scrum. But you can just scale it for up to 8 Scrum teams. I mean, they have an additional approach, which is called less huge. And then it's possible to scale it for even more teams. Yeah. I mean, the positive thing about it is that it is very understandable, so it's very easy, has simple workflows. It's based on all well-known elements of Scrum. So if you know Scrum, it's quite an easy thing to introduce less, I guess. But the negative aspect is that you have to work with Scrum. So if you want to find your own ways because something is working best for your teams or better for your teams, then this is not possible. Yeah, and I don't know if I should elaborate on the Spotify model as well.
Yeah, maybe just a couple of sentences, because I think the Spotify model has been floating around a lot over the last couple of years. And I think you did a great job, by the way, with SAFe and less and explaining the differences. And if you could just, a minute or two on the Spotify model would really help us to understand it better.
I mean, the Spotify model is named after the company, as I said, and it's so well known because of the success of this company, actually. So it was published in 2012, and when they published it, they had a smaller size as compared to Dynatrace. So they had 30 teams and about 150 devs. And it's a very, very simple concept. So it offers 4 main elements: squads, which is quite similar to Scrum teams. Then tribes, which is quite an area of a product. Like if you think of the Spotify music player or the app or the web app, could be one tribe. and guilds and chapters, which are additional organizational elements for knowledge sharing and things like that. So, but the thing is that since 2012, they didn't publish any updates. So we don't know if they did any further improvements because, he didn't publish it. But I think that they have very nice culture videos published based on this framework. It's kind of hand-drawn sketches, and they explain it very well. Within these videos, they're quite famous. Yeah, I really like that.
Very cool. I was familiar with their squads, tribes, guilds, and chapter concepts, but also great to know that they obviously built this model, or at least when they published it, they were, from a size perspective, 150 developers, and obviously since then they must have grown dramatically. So it would really be interesting to talk to them again and see how they have evolved their model over the years and how they've adapted it. So Andrea, so thanks for the introduction. So we have learned about different scaled Agile frameworks, SAFe, LESS, and the Spotify model. And now the question for me is, so why can't, as an organization, I just pick one of the models and apply it? Or let's say it that way, you were brought to Dynatrace as an Agile coach to help us, make sure that our organization can stay agile, autonomous. I'm sure you will talk a little bit more about what it is that we want to achieve. Now, how have you approached the whole thing, and have you tried some of these models? What have you learned, and what did you have to adapt, and where do we stand right now?
Yeah, sure. So when we started, we did a lot of research concerning good practices from other companies and, of course, of these frameworks. And we found out that all of these existing frameworks do not fit perfectly into the Dynatrace world because, you will find individual elements in all organizations concerning existing structures, roles, cultures, the customer collaboration, and things like that. And of course, at Dynatrace, we have a lot of well-working elements, which we would like to keep in future. For example, our open-minded culture. We believe that decisions should be made by those who are the experts in their fields. And also, I talked about autonomous teams. We believe that every team should find their own processes, events, workflows, and everything they want to use because it simply works best for them. So, we also have 8 solutions at Dynatrace with different sizes, meaning that they have a broad range concerning the number of teams and team members. And there are many well-established organizational team structures as well as roles. So, and the interesting thing is that I read about a survey which was conducted in Germany at the University of Koblenz, and they asked 650 companies about their scaled Agile framework approach. And it's very interesting that 44% said, and that was the second highest number after SAFe, that they're gonna use their own approach. So I think that's very eye-opening, and that's just what I said. Every company has their own approaches and their well-working elements which they want to use in future, and then it's very difficult to use one of these existing frameworks.
Mm-hmm. So 44%. That's. But you're right. I mean, this is an eye-opening number because it just means there's no. I mean, these blueprints that we have are obviously just not universally applicable. And I think that's also the uniqueness of every company, that you find your own way, your own culture, and maintain your own way of doing it. Because every company also had history, right? As you said, right? We have a history in how we build things and how things work, and then you don't want to completely force yourself into a model that is completely contradictory to some of the aspects of what you have been doing for a long time.
Yeah.
So then let me ask you a question. So you came on board, you said in March or 9 months ago. And what besides doing all the research on what's out there and finding these things like the Koblenz research. What else did you do then? How did you then analyze the situation at Dynatrace to figure out in which direction we need to go? Because I think our listeners that also are at the same kind of step in their transformation, they also most likely want to hear from you. Okay, what did you do next in order to figure out what to do next, basically?
That's a good question, because I think it's very important to get to know the context. So first of all, we conducted a qualitative survey within Dynatrace. So we interviewed 10 people at Dynatrace and asked them for what challenges they do face at the moment. And there were some quite interesting results. For example, many people said that it's getting more and more complex with more and more people, and that it's important to clarify all the roles and responsibilities and things like that. Yeah. And also said that the wish to have more collaboration convention, but also to preserve autonomy and flexibility. So you want to have these guidelines, but also to have freedom in the usage of these guidelines. So no strict rules at all. That's an important thing. And I mentioned before, and the organizational culture, and that was also a thing which was said during the interviews, that people had concerns to go a few steps back when changing the way of collaboration concerning the organizational culture. So you can see how much people at Dynatrace lost the culture here. Yeah. So that was the first thing. And then we started to define the first draft of the way how we are working. Just a simple concept, which we are then wanted. Then we wanted to have feedback from our colleagues and so on. So then we started to we founded a community actually, which we call Let's Rock Agile, and I really liked it. I really liked his name. The aim of this community was to, first of all, further improve this own approach, but also discuss good practices and find new ways how these guidelines, how these workflows and processes and all these things which are within this Agile, with the scaled Agile framework can work in the organization at least. So, and another good thing was that, the community included about 15 people. So we had many people which could communicate to other colleagues. So we got a lot of feedback for this scaled Agile framework. And also we tried to communicate to all other Dynatracers by writing blog posts and things like that. So just get awareness for the things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's great that you are obviously, just there as, let's say, a quote unquote outsider that looks at the company and then come up with some new ideas and then force it on them. But you actually, you started with the survey, then with the draft, and then you founded a community. I also like the term "Let's Rock Agile," and then kind of shaped what the future state of Agile needs to look like at Dynatrace with all these people. And then you're right? If you have 15 people, and then they talk with their teams, with their colleagues, and then they all bring back their feedback. Now, can you, for the listeners that may not are aware of this, can you give some numbers on how many teams currently we have at Dynatrace, and how many people in the R&D organization, so that people can actually get a little sense on how big we are and how they may compare?
At Dynatrace we have in total 2,400 employees at 50 locations, and in total 800 employees within the research and development department. So nearly 800 developers spread around the world. And this is by far not the end of the planned organizational growth. So that's a lot. it's very big at the moment.
Mm-hmm. In your research that you did, and also then in your community, did you find that there was a difference of what Agile needs to be based on maybe geography, maybe based on location? I know we have teams in Austria, we have teams in Poland, in Barcelona, we have teams in the US. Have you observed that there's maybe certain regions and cultures that are just tending towards a different approach to Agile and bring in different ideas that we haven't seen in others?
Actually, I didn't find any differences. I mean, I did a lot of research concerning all this Agile stuff. And no, I mean, Agile development is based on the Agile Manifesto, and which has been developed in the US. And many of these scaled Agile frameworks also have been developed in the US or from people which are based at the US. So I mean, it could be that there are small differences, but I mean, you need to consider all these Agile values in all your Agile frameworks. So I think there can't be so big difference.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very good. So if we may go on, what I've learned so far is we started doing some research on what others are doing. Then we looked at what we are doing currently, what actually makes up Dynatrace as an organization, right? It's we want to allow people to stay autonomous, using their own tools and processes as much as they can. So give them the freedom that they want in order to be innovative. Yet we obviously see a lot of growth, and therefore we have to figure out what does scaled Agile actually look for us. And then we are including, you have included a community of people within the organization to shape the next iteration of Agile at Dynatrace. Did I get this right? Kind of just a summary?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay. Now here's my question. How do you then, from your community, your Let's Rock Agile at Dynatrace community, the outcome that you get there, how do you then start applying these? Do you start applying this starting with one team and then see how this works with, I think in our case, it's called a solution, try it there. Do you try it for the whole organization at once because you think we have to do it at once because all these individual solutions also have to work together? So how do you get started applying these things then?
So everything what we have done so far is not my own effort alone. So everything has been started at the Agile Competence Center at Dynatrace. And in the Agile Competence Center, we have Agile coaches and also Agile program manager, which help to form the structure and the workflows of the solution. So together we try to introduce these things. And now it's about it's up and running for about 50% of our teams here at Linz. Yeah.
Can you then tell me how does this your agile coaches are you working with the teams? Are you becoming then team members of these teams that you enable, or how are you structured? Are you more like a mentoring role and you're then just working on and off with teams, or how does this work?
Yeah. We are not really a team member at the moment because, we have so many teams and only about 5 Agile coaches in Austria, so that wouldn't work. We are more like a mentor or consultant for the teams, and we help all the teams when we see that, okay, they have challenges things like that, and we want to help them to solve or overcome these challenges. So everyone or all teams can ask for help, for support, and if we available, we of course want to help everyone.
Mm-hmm. What have been your biggest challenges so far in that phase? What is the toughest thing for you?
The toughest thing, that's a good question. I mean, I've been working for quite small company before I started at Dynatrace. So a big or a challenge here is even if the culture is very open-minded and there is a very low power distance, it's you need to communicate to many people, of course. So to get everyone on the same page and to get these awareness, you need to do like such transformation things. And that's a really huge challenge here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you also have resistance? I mean, besides obviously communication is a challenge. Yes, that's understandable. You need to communicate with a lot of people across teams. Do you also have people that resist that change? And if so, how do you counter that? Because I assume our listeners that want to transform in their own organization, they may also have some that resist change, right? There's obviously we're humans, and some of us, we resist change because the status quo might be more comfortable. So basically, let me ask the question that way. If people face resistance, what is the best way to argue that change is actually good?
That's also a very interesting question because, of course, you always will find someone who don't want to go the way with you because of any reasons. It could be fear, it could be something else. And the thing is that you need to talk to the people, to explain everything in detail, and also to explain that it will improve in future, and so that they will benefit from them, and so that fear is not necessary at the time. So, but you need to talk a lot to people, but that's necessary, and this is a good thing.
So I think you mentioned that the process is not done yet. It's a constant learning and constant evolving. But what are the next steps for you now? So what, besides helping more and more teams to get on board? I think you said 50% of the teams in Linz have already been onboarded, and that's, I think, roughly, as far as I can count, we have about 400 or so people working out of the Linz office. What's next?
Yeah. We will continue with our work at Linz here, of course. So the next thing is that we want to finish, at least finish a first version of the scaled agile model, and also to communicate or to publish it internally and also externally. Mm-hmm. And we will, of course, continue all the time improving it. So we will, every time when we work with this concept, with these guidelines, we will find things that don't work as good as we thought at the beginning. So there's always things to do. And I think we have a lot to do in future with this concept and with this large-scale agile approach we have here at Dynatrace.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you come up with a great name like S or Safe or Spotify model? Did you have a...
That's not so easy. I mean, we are still working on that. It's not easy to find a name, which is easy to use, and So we're still working on that, but I hope we will find a good name in future.
Yeah,
I think,
you can call it.
I think Andy, you might want to suggest the Andy model.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
I mean, you definitely, you could call it the Dynatrace model, but then that's a ripoff of the Spotify model, right? I mean, that's too easy to guess, but I'm pretty sure. I thought, Andrea, because in leading up to this podcast, you sent us some notes on what you want to discuss, and the term that I see in that email is, it's under quotes, but it's called the Agile interface. I kind of like that, right? I mean, I'm not sure.
That was just a working title, so it's not the title which we are going to use. Mm-hmm. But the Agile interface was because of the concept that we have just this kind of building blocks in the model, so everyone can use these elements he needs and adapt it for their own needs, and that's why we called it the Agile interface. Yeah, but as I said, it's only a working title, and maybe we will find something better. So if you have any ideas, I'm open for that, of course.
Yeah, we'll Brian, we should do a shout out to our listeners and come up with some ideas and let us know.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Somehow you have to work in The Sound of Music.
Of course.
Well, the Von Trapp model.
Yeah.
Figure out if you can make Trapp, TRAPP work. Right, that's got the A for Agile. Performance process. Yeah. You might be able to make it. And I always go back to that because of you, Andy, because way back you had an amazing when you compared Australia with Austria, right, in one of your old decks, and that always just stuck with me. So I'm not doing it just to crack on Austria. It's because of you.
I know. Thank you so much. No, it's obviously a lot of people around the world know Austria because of The Sound of Music, even though we as Austrians will never understand why, because there's so many better things to remember Austria for, like Arnold or Red Bull. What else do we have? Mozart. We have Mozartkugeln, exactly.
Falco.
Falco. See, exactly. Here we go. Yeah. Andrea, I want to ask you one question now. That let's assume I am a new employee starting at Dynatrace in R&D, and it's my first day at work. And then I approach you, and then I say, "Hey, Andrea, I'm new. Can you please explain to me the scaled Agile framework we use here at Dynatrace, and what are the building blocks?" So if you, I assume you have like a short version description of like our models, like in the Spotify model, you have the squads, the tribes, the guilds, and the chapters. Do you have like a quick summary of, or like an elevator pitch, or can be longer than an elevator ride? But if somebody's new and you just say, by the way, this is how we do it at Dynatrace, this is the high level overview of it.
I do not have an elevator pitch, but I can explain it, of course. The thing behind the whole concept is, as I said before, we want to connect all the people and bring them together, and to have also very tight feedback loops, and to guarantee that our teams can work autonomously. We provide this kind of building blocks, what you can find like any events, artifacts, and things like that. You can use these building blocks. We have just a few base building blocks which you need to use, because of course we need to guarantee that we are going to ship a product in the end. So there is something which we need, but you can use these additional building blocks and build your team approach, which is best for you at the end.
Mm-hmm. Do you have some examples of those building blocks, just out of curiosity, if you're allowed to share?
Yes, of course. I mean, base building blocks like review meetings, retrospectives, things like that, which you're going to know, which you definitely know from other frameworks. So we of course do not invented everything new, because why shouldn't we use things which are working? So we have this kind of elements, and what you can use in addition are, for example, cross-team plannings, pre-plannings, and there are more like these elements. Yeah, so it's like kind of events you can combine for your own purposes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that means makes a lot of sense. So building block. I mean, now I understand also what you mean with building blocks. Like if for my own team, I want to make sure that I can go to your, let's say, catalog of building blocks, and I see how I should run my review meetings, my retrospectives, how I engage with cross team plannings, and then to make sure that all the teams are aligned. And so I think that makes sense. That's the thing that I was missing, kind of. What do you mean with building blocks? And now I get it.
Okay.
Very cool. Andrea, is there anything else that you want to advise to people that are listening to this episode and say, hey, I'm also at the brink of, which agile transformation, which agile way is it going to be for me? Or maybe they're not happy with the current way of doing things and they want to do something new. Do you have any piece of advice? Also looking back to your last, 9 months at Dynatrace or even before that, what can you tell people that they should or should not do? Just as like some final remarks.
The most important thing is that don't be afraid for the transformation because you will always face a lot of challenges during the whole transformation phase, but it's worth it. So you need to emphasize all the people and just I don't know, help people finding their way through the transformation phase. I mean, that's I guess the most important thing in such kind of transformation phases at least.
Yeah. It's like everything in life, right? If we need coaches sometimes, or people that help us on an important step where we are changing our regular patterns. And it's always good to have somebody there that shows us the new way and then also helps us the first time we walk this new way and go in that direction.
Absolutely,
yeah. Very cool. Brian.
Yes, Andy.
You've been awfully quiet today. I know you've been talking a lot yesterday when we did the last recording.
Yeah, well, I have a quote.
No excuse for you.
There's a quota that I cannot exceed. And in all honesty, my history with Agile is, so before I started in Dynatrace in 2011, I was at WebMD, and about the last 6 months before I left, they hired an Agile. This was like 2011. Hired an Agile consulting firm to try to move from waterfall to Agile. And I remember we were in a couple of meetings where they were explaining everything to us. And since we were in the performance load testing team, everyone was like, well, there's no way you could fit into this anyway. So that's the end of it for you. And then I left, and I've been an sales engineer since. So I've never actually had experience or have to have gone through any of these transformations with Agile. It's something, especially if you think about it from traditional load testing point of view, it's always kind of mind-blowing. Like, how are you going to do load testing in 2 weeks, right? Script maintenance and everything. And obviously, since 2011 till now, there's been tons of changes, tons of different approaches, tons of different, ways of thinking about performance since then. But I know initially it was just like never on my radar. I kind of escaped having to go through that. I mean, I knew waterfall was just awful. But it changed, much to Andrea's point, the change was going to be painful as all heck. If we were going to go from traditional performance testing, waterfall, to some sort of 2-week Agile model, without these new concepts that have been introduced in between, that was just something I had zero interest in having to go through, and I didn't have to. But I do want to say, it sounds, we hear this, and Andrea, I think you did an excellent job touching on this point, but maybe not quite. What I heard when you were saying it was just like we see when you're thinking about a pipeline, just what we see when you're thinking about which frameworks to pick. If we're going to go with serverless, or we're going to go with Kubernetes, even with that, it's not an all or nothing, right? You use serverless where it makes sense. You use Kubernetes where it makes sense. If you have something that, if you have mainframe, all right, great. The mainframe is running, it's doing its job, everything's running fine, leave it, When it comes to picking your Agile frameworks, or for lack of a better word, it sounds like it's a very similar thing. You have a lot of models that exist that can guide you and give you ideas that might work. But really, it sounds like if it's going to be successful and it's going to make the team happy, use the models as a model, but find what's going to work and discover what's going to work. Learn about Agile, learn about the pros and cons of everything to develop what's going to fit the people who work there, the way they've been working, the culture, what the goals are even, right? I'm sure that different models let you achieve slightly different goals in different ways. So just like anything else, it sounds like it's not a religion. You do this and this is the right way. It's more pick and choose what's going to work, which that always gets challenging because everyone wants the easy button. Follow these instructions and you're good to go. But I don't think we see that anywhere. Right? I almost kind of did a little bit of a summarator, but not really much, Andy.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Bit.
You did. You did an awesome job. No, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Cool.
I
All right. Having that said, Andrea, thank you so much for giving us the insights on what you've been doing over the last several months at Dynatrace, the change. I'm sure we will have you back. Also, I think what we have planned, because you are coming from the Agile Coach side, we've also planned to have a session on this transformation with some of the folks on the engineering side. So kind of the people that you are enabling to do things differently. So we'll looking forward to their perspective, and then we'll see if they match. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot for inviting me. I really enjoyed talking to you. So thank you a lot.
Thank you, Andrea. I learned a whole bunch.
Yeah, and actually one last remark. I think you said it. There's a master thesis also being written based on that new model. Is this correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Amazing.
But unfortunately, it's in German. So.
Wow.
Just use Google Translate, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, or a good reason to pick up Duolingo or some other app to learn German as a second or third language, right?
Andy, you have to learn another language? Oida.
Oida. Hey, that was good. That was really good. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day. If anybody has any comments or questions, please tweet them at pure_DT on Twitter, or you can email us at pureperformance@dynatrace.com. Andrea, thank you again for being on. It's very enlightening. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. And Andy, as always, thanks for making these all possible and being my co-conspirator on this. So thanks everyone for listening. We love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.